San Francisco 49ers have repeated as Super Bowl champions.
They were the gold standard. 5 Lombardi trophies. 5. And every single one of them was won inside of 14 seasons. No team in the history of professional football has ever been more dominant over a stretch of time than the San Francisco 49ers were between 1981 and 1994. They didn't just win, they changed the game. They invented an offense the entire league spent 4 decades trying to emulate. They produced one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, and then, after he left, produced another one. They had the greatest receiver who ever played. Their defensive backs instilled fear into offenses and tormented receivers. Their head coach was less of a football coach and more of a football philosopher, a man so far ahead of his time that the rest of the league spent 30 years trying to catch up. But here's the thing about setting the gold standard. At some point, the only team you're measuring yourself against is yourself. And for a franchise that reached the pinnacle 5 times, anything less felt like a failure. Decades of near misses, heartbreaks that still sting, a fan base that has tasted the best the game has to offer and has spent years watching their team come agonizingly close to tasting it again. This is the story of the San Francisco 49ers, how they built one of the most dominant dynasties the NFL has ever seen, the long and painful drought that followed it, and the relentless, thrilling, maddening chase to recapture it. The 49ers started in the All-America Football Conference, founded in 1946 by a San Francisco businessman, Tony Morabito, who had been turned down by the NFL just a few years earlier. The league didn't think the West Coast could support professional football. Too far, too expensive to travel, too much of an unknown. Morabito believed otherwise, and he was right. The team's name was a nod to the gold rush settlers who flooded California in 1849, searching for fortune. It was fitting, because this franchise would eventually find more gold than just about anyone. In the AAFC, the 49ers were competitive right away. They had Frankie Albert at quarterback, a crafty left-hander who was one of the better signal callers of his era, and fullback Joe Perry, a human freight train who would go on to be the first professional player to rush for over 1,000 yards in back-to-back seasons. They made the AAFC championship game in 1949, losing to the Cleveland Browns, the same Browns who had dominated the conference since its founding. The 49ers were great, but still a young team searching to get over the hump. When the AAFC folded following the 1949 season, 3 franchises were absorbed into the NFL: the Browns, the Baltimore Colts, and the 49ers. The rest of the league dismissed the AAFC teams as inferior competition. The Browns immediately won the NFL championship in their first season, which must have been tremendously satisfying. The 49ers took longer to prove their worth, but they were building something worth watching. By the early 1950s, the roster had some genuinely exciting players. Wyatt Tittle arrived and became one of the most electric quarterbacks in the league. Hugh McElhenney, drafted in 1952, was nicknamed the King and was one of the best open field runners of the era. Joe Perry was still rolling. The 49ers had arguably the most talented backfield in football for stretches of that decade. They just could never quite put it all together when it mattered most. Close calls became a theme. In 1957, with Tittle running a dynamic offense, the 49ers looked like legitimate contenders, finishing with a strong record, only to fall short in the postseason to the Detroit Lions, who went on to win the World Championship. Tittle was eventually traded to the New York Giants in 1961, where he would go on to 3 straight NFL championship game appearances. The 49ers entered something of a talent vacuum. What followed was a prolonged stretch of mediocrity. The 1960s were largely forgettable. New coaches, new quarterbacks, and inconsistent rosters plagued the new NFL team. From 1958 to 1969, the Niners failed to make the playoffs a single time, finishing with a lackluster 70, 85, and 7 record. The 1970s, though, offered a brief glimpse of what was possible. Dick Nolan took over as head coach in 1968 and built a legitimate contender around quarterback John Brody and receiver Gene Washington. The 49ers made 3 consecutive playoff appearances and 2 consecutive NFC Championship games from 1970 to 1972. In 1970, the Niners won the West in the division's inaugural season, finishing 10-3-1. John Brody won MVP, and Bruce Taylor won Defensive Rookie of the Year. The 1970 team defeated the Purple People Eaters 17-14 in the divisional round, but were shown the door by Tom Landry and the Cowboys in the NFC title game 10-17. In 1971, San Francisco won the West for the second straight season, finishing 9-5 this time. They defeated the Redskins in the divisional round 24-20, a game famous for the failed Nixon play.
And about 7. Kilmer on an end around and tackled for a loss back at the 21-yard line was Jefferson by Cedric Hardman.
The following week, the Niners faced Landry and Dallas again in the NFC Championship. The result this time around was the same. Dallas gatekept the Niners from another Super Bowl appearance with a 14-3 victory.
Tom Landry's doomsday defense held Dick Nolan's 49ers to their lowest point total in 5 years.
And in 1972, the script was nearly the same. Another West Division crown, another matchup against the Cowboys. Would the third time be the charm? With a 28-13 lead late in the fourth quarter, Tom Landry made a bold decision. He benched starting quarterback Craig Morton in favor of Roger Staubach. One touchdown pass, onside kick, another touchdown pass, and an interception later, the Cowboys sent the Niners packing for the third straight season, this time in the divisional round, 28-30.
Victory had been repeated. One game before, John Brody had come in relief and pegged 2 fourth-quarter touchdown passes to put San Francisco into the playoffs.
3 straight NFC West titles ended with heartbreak at the hands of the Dallas Cowboys. Tom Landry's Cowboys were the class of the NFC in those years. The 49ers were a very, very good team, but simply couldn't match them. 2 NFC Championship appearances and 3 losses to the same team should have felt like a foundation for something bigger. Instead, the window closed quickly. Brody aged, the roster thinned, Nolan was let go in 1975, and the 49ers spent the rest of the decade searching for an identity. Monty Clark, Ken Meyer, Fred O'Connor, Pete McCulley. They cycled through coaches the way a desperate team does when it doesn't have a plan. The Niners went 2-14 in 1978 under McCulley and O'Connor, one of the worst records in the league. It was, in hindsight, exactly the rock bottom that needed to happen, because rock bottom is what forced the hire that changed everything. His name was Bill Walsh. He had spent years as an offensive coordinator, first under Paul Brown in Cincinnati, where he had essentially built the Bengals offense from scratch and turned it into one of the most innovative attacks in football. He had poured himself into that job, fully expecting that when Brown stepped aside, he would be elevated to head coach. It didn't happen. Brown chose someone else, passed over Walsh without real explanation, and Walsh left Cincinnati with a chip on his shoulder the size of the Golden Gate Bridge.
I'd follow Bill to the end of the earth. There is no connection between my leaving and Bill becoming the head coach.
He went to Stanford and won big. In 1979, the 49ers hired him, gave him a franchise that had just gone 2-14, and turned him loose. The first year was rough, exactly as rough as you'd expect. The 49ers went 2-14 again in Walsh's debut. But if you watched closely, you could see things being installed, a system, a structure, a philosophy. The West Coast offense was built around timing, precision, and the idea that a quarterback who could consistently complete short passes to the right receiver at the right moment could make a defense just as helpless as one facing a deep ball specialist. It was counterintuitive, but it was ahead of its time, and Walsh needed the right quarterback to run it. He found him in the third round of the 1979 draft. From Notre Dame, number 16, Joe Montana. Montana wasn't a unanimous pick. He wasn't even close to a sure thing. He was undersized, didn't have a cannon for an arm, and scouts had real questions about whether he could process an NFL defense quickly enough to succeed. Walsh saw something entirely different. He saw a quarterback with extraordinary accuracy, ice water composure, and an almost preternatural ability to go through his reads under pressure without flinching. Montana was, in Walsh's estimation, the perfect fit for what he was building. He was right about that in almost every single way. In 1980, the 49ers took a step forward, finishing 6-10, still losing but visibly better. The system was taking hold, and importantly, the roster was being upgraded. Key additions Joe Montana, who we mentioned earlier, Dwight Clark, Earl Cooper, and Dwight Hicks helped rebuild the struggling Niners. And in 1981, everything clicked. The additions of Ronnie Lott, Eric Wright, and Carlton Williams transformed San Francisco's secondary. The 49ers exploded in '81. Finishing 13-3, and a franchise that had never won a Super Bowl was suddenly the best team in football. The divisional round helped prove that, as the 49ers won comfortably over the Giants 38-24, setting up a matchup with a familiar foe. In the NFC Championship game, they faced the Dallas Cowboys, the same franchise that had bounced them 3 times in the early 70s. The ghosts were everywhere. The game was tight and ferocious, played at Candlestick Park in front of a crowd that desperately wanted to believe. The 49ers trailed 27-21 with under a minute left. Montana led his offense onto the field, behind on the scoreboard, needing a touchdown to survive. He moved them down the field, 6 plays, methodical, calm, and then
Montana looking, throwing in the end zone. Dwight Clark
The catch, one of the most iconic plays in NFL history, and the play that ended Dallas's stranglehold on San Francisco. The 49ers were going to their first Super Bowl. In the big game, San Francisco came out hot. They scored 20 unanswered points in the first half to take a 20-0 lead. They made key stops in the second half, including an incredible goal line stand in the third quarter to maintain a 13-point lead. When the dust settled, they had beaten the Cincinnati Bengals 26-21 in Super Bowl 16.
That Joe Montana, the 49ers' fine young quarterback who had such a great year, has been named by the writers and broadcasters the most valuable player.
And Bill Walsh had his first championship. The victory for Walsh was poetic, as he defeated the franchise that passed him over several years earlier.
It's ironic that I see Paul again. I just wish them the best.
Huge thank you to Bear Mattress for sponsoring today's video. Right now, you can head to bearmattress.com/FTF and use promo code FTF for 40% off a new Bear mattress. That is higher than offered on site, so it's a great time to upgrade sleep. Bear makes a premium mattress designed to improve sleep quality and overall quality of life, and they ship it straight to the door for free in the US. There are no mattress stores, no awkward testing. The mattress arrives in a box, rolls out, and is ready in minutes. Bear is consistently top rated, awarded Best Overall in 2026 Oprah Sleep Awards, and recognized by Wired as the best mattress for back pain for its elite pressure relieving technology. I've been sleeping on it for several months now, and I've already noticed a more comfortable and restful night's sleep. But I'm not the only one. In 2024, Bear surveyed over 300 recent customers and saw 82% improvement in their sleep quality, while 95% said they would recommend Bear to a friend. If anyone sleeps hot, Bear uses sleep recovery technology with Salient powered fabric, designed to help regulate heat and keep temperatures balanced throughout the night. Their mattresses are made without harmful chemicals, so there's no off-gassing, and unlike many brands on the market, Bear mattresses are completely fiberglass free. No irritation, no airborne fibers, just clean construction. Bear delivers free within the US. The mattress sets up in minutes out of the box, and there is a 120-night sleep trial. 4 months to make sure if the mattress works for the household. The mattresses are HSA and FSA eligible. They offer financing and flexible payment plans, and every mattress comes with a limited lifetime warranty. We love our Bear mattresses, and we think you will too. If it's time to upgrade sleep, head to bearmattress.com/FTF and use promo code FTF for 40% off your Bear mattress. Again, that's a bigger discount than what's on the site, so take advantage while it's live. Thanks again to Bear Mattress for supporting the channel. And now, back to the video. The 49ers may have won their first Super Bowl, but the dynasty had just begun. Walsh was 49 years old, and he was just getting started. In 1982, a player's strike shortened the season to 9 games, and the Niners took a major step back, failing to even make the playoffs as defending champions with a 3-6 record. But in 1983, the 49ers were back in form. They defeated the Lions in a thriller divisional round game thanks to short, missed field goal by Detroit's kicker, and were back in the NFC Championship game.
The San Francisco 49ers versus the Washington Redskins.
The Niners found themselves trailing big early. Down 21-0, Joe Cool orchestrated another insane comeback, leading the Niners to 21 unanswered points of their own to tie the game 21-21. An exciting end was in sight. Unfortunately for Niners fans, the game ended badly. The controversial penalties against the Niners extended Washington's drive.
This one is good. Redskins 24, 49ers 21.
In 1984, the Niners were arguably the best they'd ever been, and this time there was no one stopping them. They finished 15-1, the best record in the NFL. The defense, anchored by the ferocious Ronnie Lott, perhaps the most physically intimidating defensive back in the history of the game, man who once had the tip of his own finger amputated rather than miss the start of a season, was as good as any in football. They rolled through the playoffs and met Dan Marino and the Miami Dolphins in the Super Bowl. Marino had just shattered every passing record imaginable that season. He threw 48 touchdown passes. He had revolutionized the position from the pocket. And most people fully expected this Super Bowl to be a shootout. It was not. The 49ers throttled Marino and the Dolphins 38-16. Montana threw for 331 yards and 3 scores and was never seriously threatened. Walsh's team had completely neutralized one of the most dangerous offenses the game had ever seen, and the Niners captured their second Lombardi trophy.
Guys, I love you. Coach Walsh, his staff, we're the best.
We are the best.
The 49ers took a step back in 1985, by their standard, finishing second in the NFC West and losing to the Giants in the divisional round 17-3. In 1986, the Niners won the West, but again lost to the Giants, this time in a 49-3 drubbing. It is important to note that Montana won Comeback Player of the Year in '86. Early in the season, Montana suffered a severely ruptured disc in his back, requiring surgery. Against the odds, he returned just 55 days after surgery and still managed to lead the Niners to the playoffs before their crushing defeat, where Montana left the game early due to re-aggravating the injury. In 1987, the Niners won their second straight division title with a 13-2 record in a strike-shortened and chaotic season. With Super Bowl aspirations once again, the Niners appeared poised to make a deep run, especially with a relatively weak matchup in the divisional round against the Vikings. The Vikings turned out to be anything but weak.
Young gets it off to Dwight Clark. Clark flips off the lateral to Young, and Young gets to the 45. And of course, this is going to be 3 years in a row that Minnesota will have beaten San Francisco.
With 3 years passed since their '84 Super Bowl, many thought the dynasty was running on fumes. But Walsh had one more trick up his sleeve. Actually, two. The first was Jerry Rice. Walsh had drafted him back in 1985, the 16th overall pick out of Mississippi Valley State, a small HBCU in Mississippi that most scouts had barely visited. Rice ran a 4.640 at the combine. Not impressive for a wide receiver at any level. Most teams passed. Walsh took him and immediately saw what the stopwatch couldn't measure. Route precision, body control, hand strength, and a competitive drive so intense that Rice would become famous for his offseason workouts long after he had already the best player at the position. He ran hill sprints in the California heat that teammates said felt like punishment. He obsessed over film and proved to be one of the best route runners the game had ever seen. By 1987, he was already the most dangerous receiver in football and Offensive Player of the Year. The second piece was Roger Craig in 1983, a running back with the rare ability to line up as a receiver out of the backfield.
Roger Craig has done something that no one else has ever done in the history of the NFL. He's gotten over 1,000 yards rushing and over 1,000 yards receiving. The first player in the history.
A position Walsh effectively invented. With Rice, Craig, Montana, and a defense that had quietly rebuilt itself, the 49ers came roaring back in 1988. They finished 10-6, won the NFC West. Roger Craig won Offensive Player of the Year and blitzed through the playoffs to reach Super Bowl 23 against, of all teams, the Bengals again. The game was a classic, tight, physical, tense throughout. The Bengals took a 16-13 lead with 3:20 remaining. 49ers got the ball back on their own 8-yard line, 92 yards from the end zone with no timeouts. The Super Bowl on the line, and Joe Montana, in the huddle, looked up into the stands and said he could see John Candy sitting up there. This little story will tell you everything you need to know about Joe Montana and why he's called Joe Cool. He was unflappable and a calming force for his teammates in the game's most pressure-filled moments. He drove them 92 yards in 11 plays. Montana to Rice, Montana to Craig, working the ball methodically down the field the way a craftsman finishes a piece of furniture.
Montana is back to throw. He looks and throws end zone. Touchdown! Touchdown! To John Taylor with 34 seconds left. A 10-yard touchdown pass to John Taylor.
Later, this heroic effort would be known as the Drive. He had become a legend. The Niners had their third Lombardi trophy in 8 seasons. Jerry Rice was Super Bowl MVP.
San Francisco has won Super Bowl 23. Jerry Rice, the hero for the 49ers, and Bill Walsh will get the ride.
And then, one of the strangest things in sports history happened. Bill Walsh retired. He was 57. He had just won his 3rd Super Bowl. He was at the absolute top of his profession, and he walked away from it. He said it was burnout, exhaustion. Years of the relentless stress of coaching at its highest level had worn him down in ways that weren't visible from the outside. Some believe there was more to the story, that the pressure of maintaining the standard year over year had taken a psychological toll that Walsh was too proud to fully describe. Whatever the reason, the architect was gone, and the question turned to whether what he'd built could survive without him. The answer, at least initially, was yes. George Seifert, Walsh's defensive coordinator, took over, and with Montana still under center, the 49ers went 14-2 and produced what many still consider the most dominant performance in NFL history. Joe Montana won MVP and Offensive Player of the Year. For the second straight season, they scorched everyone in their path on the way to the Super Bowl. San Fran got their get back against Minnesota, winning 41-13, and then smoked the Rams in the NFC title, 30-3. They faced the Denver Broncos and John Elway, who had now been to 3 Super Bowls, and were desperate to finally win one. The 49ers showed them no mercy. Montana threw 5 touchdown passes. The final score was 55-10 in the Super Bowl against a team that had been the class of the AFC for several years. It wasn't even close. And more than that, it was a statement. 4 Super Bowls in 9 years. No team in the history of the sport had done anything like it. And for most of it, it ran through 1 head coach, 1 quarterback, and 1 system. The Niners had officially become the gold standard. With Seifert officially carrying the torch, it started to feel like the Niners would own the NFL for decades. They went 14-2 again in 1990. Joe Montana won his second straight MVP, and the question that lingered was no longer if Seifert could keep it going, it was if they could three-peat. Unfortunately, they could not. Matched up with the Giants in the NFC title, Montana took a brutal hit in the fourth quarter.
Well, watch it here, but it was good defense downfield. He had no one to throw to. They knocked him out of the rhythm. Then you see Taylor miss, and right there is a hit. Leonard Marshall coming from the backside.
Montana up, but woozy. No doubt about that.
Steve Young, who had been waiting behind Montana for 3 seasons, came in, but couldn't move the offense. Lawrence Taylor dominated the line of scrimmage. The 49ers lost 15-13, a score that tells you everything about how close it was, but nothing about how painful it felt. And then, just like that, came the situation that made the soap opera around any other quarterback controversy look tame by comparison. Steve Young had been acquired from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in 1987 and was crowned the heir apparent by Bill Walsh. He was fast, genuinely fast, one of the fastest quarterbacks ever seen, and his arm was a cannon. He was, by any measurable standard, an exceptional NFL quarterback. The problem was that the man standing in front of him was Joe Montana, who was not simply an exceptional quarterback. He was the standard by which every quarterback was judged. Young was extraordinarily good. Montana was historically great. And sitting behind Montana, watching, waiting, and stewing, well, that's hard on anyone. Montana tore his elbow in 1991 training camp, had surgery, and missed the entire season. Young played well in his absence, well enough that the debate intensified. When Montana returned in 1992, he was back on the bench. He'd lost the starting job to Young, and the tension inside the facility was palpable, reported on constantly by the local media.
Electricity, it's all about number 16, the legend Joe Montana. He is coming back. He is going to have considerable playing time tonight, and quite frankly, I'm glad I'm here to see it happen.
2 great quarterbacks, 1 job, and there was no clean answer. Young took over for the 1992 season, and the 49ers were exceptional, 14-2, some of the most explosive offensive football you've ever seen. Young was the league MVP. The Cowboys, though, were waiting in Dallas for the NFC Championship game. Emmitt Smith was a force, and Michael Irvin was the most physically dominant receiver in the game. Troy Aikman was surgically precise. With the game close in the fourth quarter and the Cowboys leading 24-20, Aikman iced it with 79 yards in 2 plays. The final was 30-20. And the Niners had turned the ball over 4 times. After the season, the franchise made the difficult decision to trade Montana. He went to Kansas City, which was the right move for everyone involved. And Young was officially the starter. The quarterback, who had lived in a legend's shadow, was finally free to create his own legacy. And he didn't waste the opportunity. In 1993, he threw for 29 touchdowns and was once again among the best in the game. He led the Niners to a 10-6 record and their 4th NFC West crown in 5 seasons. Young and the Niners destroyed the Giants, avenging their loss 3 years earlier. But in the NFC Championship against Dallas, the Niners fell short again, 21-38. Back-to-back NFC Championship losses to the same franchise. The Cowboys had done to the Niners in the 1990s what they had done to them in the early 70s. Dallas was the wall that San Francisco simply could not get over, save for 81. So, in 1994, the 49ers decided the wall needed to be demolished. In the offseason, they essentially went out and bought the best available football players on the planet. They added Deion Sanders, the most electrifying cornerback alive, and Ken Norton Jr. from the Cowboys themselves, a direct raid on the team that had beaten them twice. The fun didn't stop there. They added Richard Dent and Gary Plummer. They spent enormous money, leveraged their cap space aggressively, and assembled what most analysts called the most talented single-season roster the sport has ever seen. They went 13-3, Young threw for 35 touchdowns and only 10 interceptions.
Steve Young, he is the first quarterback to post 4 straight seasons with the highest quarterback rating.
Won another MVP, and the defense, with Sanders patrolling one side of the field and making entire halves of the field unavailable to opposing offenses, was suffocating. Sanders won Defensive Player of the Year. After throttling the Bears 44-15, San Francisco found themselves in an all too familiar position. The NFC Championship game, Dallas was waiting.
They're letting it all hang out. They've had the frustration of losing 2 of these championship games.
Waters was the lone setback. Now it's only Young.
This time was different. Young carved them apart. The 49ers led 21-0 before the Cowboys knew what hit them. Dallas rallied, made it close for a stretch.
Michael Irvin, touchdown, Dallas. They can double him, but they still can't cover him.
But the 49ers had more.
It's his day and it's his team, and he knows it, and everyone else knows it.
They won 38-28, and the monkey, the star-shaped monkey that had been sitting on San Francisco's back for 2 straight years, was finally gone. In Super Bowl 29 against the San Diego Chargers, it was over before anyone had a chance to get nervous.
And Steve Young, the first to throw 6 touchdown passes in a Super Bowl game, 49-26.
And when the final whistle blew, Young tore off his helmet and sprinted around the field. Pure, unreleased joy. The joy of a man who had spent years in the shadow of the greatest quarterback of his generation and had just become a champion on his own terms.
Someone take him off the outside, please!
Five Super Bowls for the San Francisco 49ers, a dynasty unlike anything the sport has ever produced. There was no question, no debate. They were the gold standard, and then it was over. Young continued to play well in 1995, winning another passing title. The 49ers kept making the playoffs, but the roster that had been assembled for the 1994 run had aged out and started to dismantle. The salary cap, which had just been introduced, made it impossible to maintain that level of spending. Deion Sanders left. Key pieces of the defense scattered. The offense was still there, still dangerous, but the complete machine that Walsh had refined and that Seifert had maintained was finally beginning to break down. In 95, the Niners lost to the Packers in the divisional round. In 96, the Packers sent them packing again. After 96, Seifert left, although many say he would not have received an extension anyway. Steve Mariucci was then brought in. In 97, the Niners made the playoffs, but were sent home the Packers again. But in the 1998 playoffs, if you watched our Packers video, you'll remember this play. The 49ers eliminated Brett Favre in Green Bay in the divisional round on a famous play to Terrell Owens.
So they get another play.
3-man rush, and Young stumbles on the way back and fires up the middle. Pass is caught by Owens. Owens made the catch.
San Francisco had finally avenged their 3 straight losses to the Pack. In the 98 divisional round, the Niners lost to the Falcons in a bitterly close game, 18-20. Yet, Young was still there and still producing. Then, in 1999, against the Cardinals, Young took a hit.
Side rush, it's Aeneas Williams down here, number 35. Oh, chest. Looks like he got hit right in the chest.
His 5th known concussion, doctors said. And that was it. He retired. The man who had spent so many years waiting for his chance had his career ended not by age or performance, but by the repeated violence of the position. He left the game as a champion, as a Hall of Famer, but he couldn't help wondering what else he might have done in a few more healthy seasons.
Nothing in life can be like those great moments.
The 49ers, for the second time in the decade, were starting over at quarterback. Jeff Garcia was next. He was an unlikely NFL starter, undersized, not heavily recruited out of college, spent years in the CFL, but he was smart, accurate, and tough. And he gave the 49ers just enough to remain competitive in the early 2000s. In 2001, the 49ers went 12-4, but were shown the door by the Packers. In 2002, San Francisco went 10-6 and had a memorable postseason. Down 38-14 in the third quarter of a wildcard game against the New York Giants, Garcia led the most improbable comeback in NFL history to date. The 49ers scored 25 unanswered points. Terrell Owens had 177 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 two-point conversions. The crucial play came when Giants replacement long snapper Trey Junkin blew the snap on the go-ahead field goal.
Snap. Allen couldn't get it down, and now he fires. Pass interference.
Following week, they played the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the divisional round and lost 31-6.
took over from the beginning. The clock has expired, and this game belongs to the Bucks.
This exemplifies the highs and lows of being a Niner. When you're good, it often hurts. In 2003, Garcia's final year with the team, the 49ers finished 7-9. He was released. Also, it's important to note that in 2000, ownership changed hands. Denise DiBartolo and her husband, John York, took over for brother Eddie DiBartolo Jr., who had been suspended from the league following a gambling scandal involving the Louisiana governor. And the front office became a source of dysfunction rather than strength. From 2003 through 2010, the 49ers had 7 losing seasons, with one 500 season in 2009. 7 losing seasons for the gold standard. The franchise that had won 5 Super Bowls in 14 years couldn't find their way above 500. They drafted Alex Smith first overall in 2005, and while Smith was a perfectly capable quarterback, his development was repeatedly derailed by coaching changes. He played under 5 different offensive coordinators in his first 5 seasons, which is roughly the equivalent of learning 5 different languages simultaneously and being graded on fluency each week. Mike Nolan came and went. Mike Singletary, the legendary linebacker, was hired with much fanfare and proved better as a motivational speaker than an NFL head coach. The roster had talent: Vernon Davis, Frank Gore, Patrick Willis, but no continuity, no vision at the top, and no clear path forward. By 2010, the 49ers had become one of professional football's cautionary tales, a franchise so accomplished it had defined an era, now struggling to get to 8 wins. The stadium was half empty some nights. The offense was among the league's worst. Smith was so battered by the chaos around him that it was impossible to evaluate what he actually was as a quarterback. And then, on the sideline of a losing football team, someone made a phone call that changed everything. Jim Harbaugh wasn't exactly hard to find. He had just finished making Stanford, which had been a Pac-10 afterthought for most of its football history, into a legitimate national contender, going 12-1 in his final season with the Cardinal. He was loud, combative, perpetually angry about something, and completely, utterly consumed by football in a way that reminded people of coaches from another era. He wanted to win more than he wanted to be liked. In today's NFL, that's rarer than you think. The 49ers hired him in January 2011, and the transformation was immediate in a way that even the optimists didn't fully anticipate. Alex Smith, who had been largely written off as a bust by the national media, played the best football of his career under Harbaugh's structure. Frank Gore ran behind one of the more physical offensive lines in the conference, and the defense, spearheaded by Patrick Willis, Aldon Smith, Justin Smith, Navarro Bowman, Deshaun Goldson, and Carlos Rogers, was one of the most dominant units in football. The 49ers went 13-3. In the playoffs, the defense showed why they were so special, turning over the Saints 5 times. The 49ers jumped out to a 17-0 lead, but the Saints would not go away. New Orleans clawed all the way back to take their first lead with 4 minutes left in the fourth on a Drew Brees touchdown, going up 24-23. Alex Smith answered, 29-24. Then Brees punched back with just over a minute to go, giving the Saints a 30-29 lead. Then, on the final drive, this happened. Great movies sometimes become trilogies. Apparently catches do as well. Vernon Davis was the man who hauled in the catch 3, and the 49ers won their first playoff game in 9 seasons. The NFC Championship game was a thriller. Davis opened the scoring with a 73-yard touchdown. The Giants punched back with 10 unanswered, and then Vernon Davis scored his second touchdown of the game to take a 14-10 lead. Then, tragedy struck. Kyle Williams, the 49ers return man, muffed 2 punts in the second half, too. Both led directly to Giants scoring drives. The first came in the fourth quarter. The Niners responded with a field goal to force overtime. The second came in overtime. The Giants kicked the field goal, and that was all she wrote. New York won the game 20-17 in overtime, and the 49ers season ended because of special teams misfortune so brutal it was almost impossible to process. In 2012, things got complicated in the best way possible. Smith was playing well. The 49ers were 6-2 through 8 weeks when he suffered a concussion and a win over the Rams. Colin Kaepernick, a second-round pick from Nevada with a rocket arm and the athleticism of a running back, had been developing behind Smith all season. Harbaugh named Kaepernick the starter and never changed his mind. The Niners finished 11-4-1, going 5-2-1 with Cap under center, and won the West for the second straight year under Harbaugh. The playoffs that year were extraordinary. In the wildcard round, Kaepernick ran for 181 yards against the Green Bay Packers, 181 rushing yards from a quarterback in a playoff game. The 49ers won 45-31. The following week, they faced the Atlanta Falcons in the NFC Championship game. Falling behind 17-0, It looked like San Fran would fall short of the Super Bowl for the second year in a row. Then the comeback happened, scoring a touchdown before half to make the score 24-14, and then another out of halftime to bring it within 3. All of a sudden, Harbaugh's Niners were within striking distance. In the fourth, the Niners continued to play great defense, scored thanks to a Frank Gore touchdown run to go up 28-24, and held off the Falcons to complete the comeback. The Niners were back in the Super Bowl, and Jim Harbaugh was matched up with an all-too-familiar foe. Super Bowl 47, New Orleans, the 49ers against the Baltimore Ravens, coached by Jim Harbaugh's older brother, John. If you tried to write that as fiction, an editor would tell you to make it more believable.
Everybody's good? You got everything taken care of?
I think so.
Yeah? We didn't have to worry about it. I didn't either.
The Ravens came out and played one of the better first halves in Super Bowl history. Joe Flacco was precise and fearless, throwing 3 first-half touchdown passes. On the opening kickoff of the second half, Jacoby Jones took the kick all the way back to the house.
Jacoby Jones, and look at him go. Jones is past the 50, and he is flying inside the 20 on a kickoff return, 109 yards and a touchdown, an all-time record.
The Ravens built a 28-6 lead in the third quarter, and the game appeared to be over. Then the lights went out, literally. A power outage at the Superdome plunged half the stadium into darkness for 34 minutes. Nobody knows exactly why. Nobody has ever offered a fully satisfying explanation. The game just stopped. Players stretched, coaches reviewed notes, and the nation waited. When play resumed, Kaepernick was a different quarterback, and the Niners seized momentum, coming all the way back and making the score 28-23. After exchanging touchdowns, the score was 34-29. The 49ers had the ball back with a chance to take the lead. They drove to the Ravens' 7-yard line. On 4th and goal, Kaepernick threw a pass to Michael Crabtree that looked like it could be the dagger, until it wasn't. The pass fell incomplete, but it looked like Ravens cornerback Jimmy Smith was all over him, no flag to be found. Most of the football-watching world believed it was pass interference. The official swallowed his whistle. The call was an incompletion. The Ravens held, and the game effectively ended there. The final score was 34-31 after the Ravens intentionally took a safety.
I'm taking a safety.
John Harbaugh celebrated. Jim Harbaugh stared at the field, and the 49ers walked away from the closest they'd come to a 6th championship since 1994, with more questions than answers. In 2013, the 49ers were back in the NFC Championship. They finished 12-4 and defeated both the Packers and the Panthers in the first 2 rounds of the playoffs. They met division rival Seattle Seahawks at CenturyLink Field, one of the loudest and most hostile environments in professional sports. The storylines were aplenty. Harbaugh and Carroll, a rivalry that dated back to their Pac-10 days. Richard Sherman, the most verbose cornerback in the league and arguably its best at the time, was lined up against Crabtree all day. The game was tight. The 49ers mostly had control, leading at one point 10-3, and another 17-10. But the Seahawks were opportunistic, storming back and taking a 23-17 lead thanks to a Niners turnover. Late in the fourth quarter, the Niners drove all the way down the field and had a chance to win it. On 1st and 10 from the 18, Kaepernick threw toward Crabtree in the end zone. Sherman tipped it. The ball went up in the air and landed in the arms of linebacker Malcolm Smith. Interception. Ball game. Seahawks win. And then, following the play, Sherman jogged over to Crabtree, got in his face, and made sure everyone watching on television knew who had won. The post-game interview that followed became one of the most replayed clips in sports television history.
Well, I'm the best corner in the game. When you try me with a sorry receiver like Crabtree, that's the result you're going to get. Don't you ever talk about me.
In 2014, the Niners took a step back. They finished a disappointing 8-8 in Harbaugh's 4th season, and the 49ers' wheels started to come off. Then came the decision that 49ers fans will debate forever. Harbaugh and general manager Trent Baalke had developed a relationship that had deteriorated beyond repair. The details are murky, they always are in these situations, but the dysfunction was real. Rumors were Baalke was tired of Jim Harbaugh's controlling style, and that Harbaugh felt his authority was being undermined. Ownership chose to let Harbaugh go after the 2014 season. He went to Michigan, his alma mater, and his absence was felt for a considerable period. 2015, they went 5-11 again. In 2016, 2-14. From 3 straight NFC Championship games to arguably the worst team in the league in 2 years. Colin Kaepernick, without the structure Harbaugh had provided, was a diminished player. His decision to kneel during the national anthem in protest of racial injustice made him a polarizing figure nationally. And though the social significance of what he did had been widely recognized since, at the time, it added layers of chaos to an already struggling franchise. Chip Kelly came in as head coach in 2016 and was gone after 1 season. the 49ers were rebuilding from scratch. In 2017, the 49ers made 2 hires that would define the next decade. John Lynch, a former safety who played 11 NFL seasons and had little experience in a front office outside of shadowing under Elway in Denver, was named general manager. The choice was unconventional, to put it charitably. And Kyle Shanahan, the offensive coordinator of the Atlanta Falcons, was named head coach. He was the son of Mike Shanahan, who had won 2 Super Bowls in Denver. He had the offensive acumen of a prodigy who had been studying the game since he could walk. He also came with a specific piece of baggage, Super Bowl 51. Played just weeks before his hire in San Francisco, had seen his Falcons take a 28-3 lead over the New England Patriots in the third quarter and lose 34-28 in overtime, the first overtime game in Super Bowl history. Shanahan, as offensive coordinator, was holding the headset for every snap of that collapse. Some blamed the play calling, some blamed the players, some blamed the clock. Shanahan himself has addressed it over the years without ever fully seeming to put it to rest. The details matter. We'll come back to that. The early years of the rebuild were bumpy. Midway through the 2017 season, Shanahan acquired Jimmy Garoppolo from the New England Patriots for a second-round pick, a trade that Lynch and Shanahan were sure enough about to pay a significant price for a quarterback who had never really started in the NFL. Garoppolo went 5-0 in his first 5 starts, looked sensational, and signed a massive contract extension. Although the Niners finished 6-10, it appeared San Francisco had their quarterback. In Week 3 of the 2018 season, Garoppolo tore his ACL. Season over. The 49ers finished 4-12 and spent the year trying to figure out what they had. The answer, if Garoppolo could stay healthy, was a lot. They added Nick Bosa with the 2nd overall pick in the draft, and in 2019, everything clicked. The 49ers went 13-3, their best record since 1995. The defense was terrifying. Nick Bosa won Defensive Rookie of the Year in one of the most dominant debut seasons a pass rusher had ever had. Fred Warner emerged as a linebacker for the ages. Emmanuel Mosley, Richard Sherman, and a healthy secondary made life miserable for opposing quarterbacks. On offense, Deebo Samuel was already showing flashes of the nightmare matchup he'd become. George Kittle was the best tight end in football, a blocker who played like a lineman and a receiver who ran like a tailback. Shanahan's offensive system, a descendant of the zone blocking and play action concepts his father had mastered in Denver, was clicking at a high level. They beat the Vikings in the divisional round 27-10. And then crushed the Packers in the NFC Championship, 37-20. Aaron Rodgers never truly found his footing against the stout 49ers defense. After 6 tumultuous seasons, the Niners were back in the big game. Super Bowl 54, Miami. The 49ers against the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. In only his 2nd season as a starter, the Chiefs had a transcendent quarterback. The Niners had a tremendous roster. San Francisco was in control for most of the game. Raheem Mostert, a running back who had been cut by every other team in the league at some point in his career, ran for 58 yards in the first half. The Niners led 20-10 with less than 8 minutes remaining in the fourth quarter, and the Lombardi Trophy felt close enough to touch. Then, it slipped away. Mahomes, and it's worth pausing here to note that Mahomes may end up being one of the most consequential players in NFL history. A quarterback with the improvisational ability of no one who has ever played the position took over. After throwing an interception to start the fourth, the Chiefs' defense did just enough to keep them alive. Trailing by 10 with just over 7 minutes remaining, Mahomes did what he does best. On 3rd and 15, Mahomes completed a 44-yard pass to Tyreek Hill. This was the turning point. The Chiefs scored on their next 3 possessions, 21 points in the final 7 minutes, 31-20. The 49ers had held the lead going into the fourth quarter of a Super Bowl and lost by 11 points. Kyle Shanahan had now watched 2 double-digit fourth-quarter Super Bowl leads evaporate. The conversation about play calling and game management was louder than ever. Whether it was fair or not, the narrative was there, written in large print, and it wasn't going anywhere. In 2020, the 49ers were decimated by injuries. Garoppolo missed time. Numerous key defensive players went down. They finished 6-10 and missed the playoffs. Nick Bosa tore his ACL in Week 2 and was gone for the year. It was a lost season in every sense. 2021, the 49ers were back. Bosa returned. The defense was whole again. Garoppolo was healthy. They finished 10-7, barely making the playoffs as a wildcard team. And then they did something extraordinary. They jumped all over Dallas in the wildcard round, taking a 23-7 lead. Dallas battled back to within 6, and then chaos ensued. With 14 seconds left and no timeouts, Dak took a quarterback draw up the middle for a first down to the 49ers' 17-yard line. Dallas looked like they would have one more shot, and this happened.
Oh my gosh. The official gets in the way. The game's over. Gosh. The game is over. Sure about the call, though. This is where you can't set your own ball as a center. You got to give it to the ref. Dak Prescott should have looked and found the ref. You can't give it to your center.
Dak had failed to spike the ball, and the game ended. the Niners moved on. The next week, San Francisco went to Lambeau Field and beat the Packers in the divisional round on a late Robbie Gould field goal that sent the frozen Green Bay crowd home in silence. The Niners defense was absolutely stifling, and it had apparently become Aaron Rodgers' kryptonite. Back in the NFC Championship, the Niners matched up against the Los Angeles Rams. Leading 17-7, it appeared as though the Niners were in control. Then, Aaron Donald and Stafford took over. Donald was all over Garoppolo. Stafford led 3 scoring drives to the touchdown and 2 field goals. Trailing now by 3, Garoppolo and the Niners had one more chance to win it. On 3rd and 13, with a little over a minute to go, Donald got pressure again. Garoppolo threw it up for grabs, and that was it. The interception ended the 49ers' Cinderella season. In 2022, the roster was still strong enough to make a deep run. Trey Lance, whom the 49ers had traded 3 first-round picks to select 3rd overall in 2021, had taken over as a starter from Garoppolo. Succession was very short-lived. Lance suffered a season-ending ankle injury in Week 2. Garoppolo came back, started, and played winning football. The Niners added Christian McCaffrey in Week 7, and the Niners went from good to dangerous. Then, Garoppolo went down with a foot injury. Brock Purdy, the 262nd and final pick of the 2022 draft, the famous Mr. Irrelevant pick, came in. He played brilliantly for the remainder of the season. The Niners finished 13-4 and won the West for the first time since 2019. In the playoffs, the Niners kept the good times rolling. They blew out Seattle 41-23. In the divisional round, the Niners held a 10-9 lead over the Cowboys late in the 3rd quarter. Driving, Purdy connected with Kittle on a ridiculous catch that led to a CMC touchdown, giving the Niners a 16-9 lead. The Niners picked off Dak a couple of times and extended their lead 19-12 thanks to a Robbie Gould field goal. They held on and were back in the NFC title against the Eagles. In a highly anticipated matchup with Philly, Brock Purdy, too, got hurt, tearing the UCL on his throwing elbow on a brutal sack.
Option at quarterback.
Yeah, Tevin Coleman in the game. We'll get a couple flips back to McCaffrey. Why not? Pump fakes. Now he lets one fly, and there's no one over there.
The 49ers lost 31-7, essentially finishing the game without a viable quarterback. Of all the 49ers losses, this particular loss was a different kind of heartbreak. It wasn't dramatic, it was just cruel. But Purdy, despite the injury, was not done. Coming off of elbow surgery, Brock Purdy entered the 2023 season as an enormous question mark. He had shown flashes in 2022 before the injury, but he was still Mr. Irrelevant, the last pick, a quarterback who, by NFL draft logic, was not supposed to start for a Super Bowl contender. Nobody told him that. Purdy was sensational in 2023. He was accurate, decisive, almost impossibly composed for a second-year player who had been through the kind of complexity the 49ers had subjected their quarterbacks to for years. Shanahan's system, which had always been able to elevate quarterbacks, the knock on Shanahan had always been that his system makes everyone look good, was operating at its highest level. Yet, Purdy wasn't just a product of the system. He was making plays that the system didn't design, making decisions under pressure that you can't coach, earning the respect of his teammates and opponents week by week. Christian McCaffrey, who the 49ers had acquired in a midseason trade from Carolina the year prior, was the best player in football. Not the best running back, the best player. He rushed, received, threw, blocked, and did things with the football that defenses simply had no answer for. Deebo Samuel was fully himself, a receiver-running back hybrid who made every defensive coordinator's game plan look like a rough draft. Brandon Ayuk was emerging as one of the most complete wide receivers in the NFC, and the defense, led by Bosa, Warner, and a reinvigorated secondary, was the standard by which every other defense in the league was measured. The 49ers finished 12-5, entered the playoffs as the top seed in the NFC, the heavy favorite to represent the conference in the Super Bowl. They took care of business against the Green Bay Packers in the divisional round, 24-21, a game that was closer than the 49ers would have liked, but produced the result that they needed. The following week, in the NFC Championship against the Detroit Lions, a Lions team that had been one of the better stories in the league all season, a franchise that had waited its entire existence to reach this stage, 49ers found themselves in trouble, serious trouble. Trailing 24-7 at halftime and looking all but out, the Niners did what great franchises often do. They found a way. McCaffrey ran. Purdy executed. The defense was smothering. They got key 4th down stops when they needed them, made a huge catch on what looked like an interception, and forced a timely turnover to fuel the comeback. Against all odds, San Francisco won 34-31.
And there it is! The 49ers are going to the Super Bowl!
Outscoring the Lions 27-7 in the second half and punching their ticket to another Super Bowl appearance, their 8th in franchise history. Their opponent was an all too familiar one, Kansas City, Andy Reid, and Patrick Mahomes. Super Bowl 58 was unlike any Super Bowl in recent memory. The Niners grabbed a 10-point lead thanks to a Juwan Jennings touchdown throw and then a touchdown catch of his own. But Kansas City battled back. A punt miscue gave Kansas City life, and they scored on a touchdown pass from Mahomes to Valdez-Scantling. Several field goals later, including a Super Bowl record 57-yarder by Butker, the teams were headed to overtime, tied 19-19. On their first possession, the 49ers drove deep into Kansas City territory. Purdy moved them efficiently down the field, McCaffrey picking up critical yards, the offense operating exactly as it should have been. Then, on third down, inside the red zone, the Chiefs' defense made a stop. The Niners settled for a field goal, and it was the Chiefs' ball. I'm sure you know where this is going. Patrick Mahomes did what he often does. He led Kansas City down the field and ended it with a 3-yard touchdown to Mecole Hardman. For the third time since the turn of the millennium, the 49ers had come agonizingly close. For the second time under Shanahan, they had lost the Super Bowl to Mahomes in Kansas City. The final was 25-22, the thinnest of margins separating them from their 6th championship and the longest drought in franchise history coming to an end. There are no easy explanations for it. The talent is there. The coaching is there. Shanahan is one of the 2 or 3 best offensive minds in the sport. Purdy is legitimate. McCaffrey is the best player alive. Bosa is a force of nature. And yet, the Niners simply haven't been able to get it done. Over the last 2 seasons, the Niners have been decimated by injuries. They missed the playoffs in 2024 and had a great year this past season, getting their revenge against the Eagles in the wildcard round, but losing handily to the eventual Super Bowl champion Seattle Seahawks 41-6 in the divisional. While the ending was disappointing, the strong core is still in place, and the Niners have shown that they aren't going anywhere as long as Shanahan is around. So, there you have it. San Francisco, California. Bill Walsh, Joe Montana, Dwight Clark, Jerry Rice, Ronnie Lott, Roger Craig, Steve Young, the catch, the drive, 55-10 in a Super Bowl, 5 Lombardi trophies in 14 years. An offensive philosophy that every team in the league still runs pieces of today. An era so dominant that people who never watched it know about it. And then the wandering. The coaches who didn't work out. The quarterbacks who couldn't stay healthy. The stretches of losing that felt entirely disconnected from the team's own history. The distant memory of what it felt like to be the standard. And now we're at the doorstep. 3 Super Bowl appearances since 2012, 3 losses. A franchise that has spent the better part of 30 years measuring itself against a golden era that most franchises would trade their entire histories to have, and coming up just short of adding to it. What do you do with that? What do you do when you've tasted perfection 5 times in 14 years, and you keep getting close enough to see it, but not close enough to hold it? It's often a tough pill to swallow. But this franchise is not broken. It's not declining. It's not wandering the way it wandered between 1995 and 2010. The roster is built. The coach is one of the best in the game. Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, remember, has proved he belongs. Christian McCaffrey is still Christian McCaffrey. Nick Bosa is still Nick Bosa. Fred Warner is still at the top of his game. If you know anything about this franchise, if you've absorbed any of what you've just heard, you know that the San Francisco 49ers have a way of building something extraordinary when you least expect it. A 2-14 team became a dynasty. A team wandering through the wilderness for 7 years becomes a 4-time NFC Championship contender. A last-round draft pick becomes a Super Bowl starter. San Francisco will be back. They always come back. That's what you do when you're the gold standard. You don't stop chasing gold. You've already found it before, and you know exactly where to find it again.